One of the things that always interested me about the arcade was the cabinets and the sounds. Walking into an arcade when they are at their height was not only a visual but auditory experience. Each cabinet had to look and feel and offer something interesting in order to draw the attention and get people interested in playing. And a lot of work was put into just that. Not only the look of the cabinet and the game itself, but how it presented that game experience. And yes, I know I've said this before, but it's still relevant, and in some ways, more so than ever for today's episode, because today we're going to talk about a moving sit-down cabinet in the form of Afterburner. Afterburner was, at its core, an on-the-rails arcade shooter. In this one, you flew an F-14 Tomcat and were tasked with shooting your way through 18 levels of enemy-filled sky. You're equipped with unlimited bullets and a limited supply of missiles in which to achieve this. Like many of the games of this type at this time, this game was third-person and made heavy use of a technique called sprite scaling in order to give a good sense of speed and depth to the game that it otherwise wouldn't be able to achieve. A lot of this had been done before in other games, and was pretty much pioneered by Sega itself already in a game called Vons. However, this time, Sega had some new tricks up their sleeves for this particular title that gamers really hadn't seen before. Now, I know what you're saying. What on earth did Afterburner bring to the party that would make it kind of a unique or rare experience? And in some ways you're right, and others not so much. You see, it wasn't so much how rare it was, but how rare it was at the time. You see, this cabinet did a few things that actually hadn't been done a lot before now. The first was the board it used, commonly called the Sega X board. Now, this board was capable not only of scaling and rotation of sprites, but it could also rotate surfaces. Yeah, surfaces. This gave the action a sense of immersion that virtually no other shooter would have around this time. Now, to complement this advancement in the on-screen technology, Sega would break out a system that they called a hydraulic Taiken system for this particular game. What this did is it allowed the cabinet to move with the player. If you pulled back on the stick, the cabinet would tilt up. If you pushed the stick up, it would tilt down. It could also tilt left and right. This is the kind of experience that was neither cheap nor really accessible at home at the time. However, all these components were very important in the eyes of Yu Sakura's real-life experiences. You see, the guy who made this game had experience flying a fighter plane due to the fact that he was actually given the opportunity to get in one with an instructor and participate in some combat maneuvers. Now, he didn't really see live combat, but simulated combat. The planes would engage with lasers mounted on the plane, and when an opponent was hit, a smoke bomb would go off indicating a hit. He was actually shocked at how easy it was to control and maneuver the plane itself. Far cry from the kind of game that had been released before, which were much harder to play and control. He wanted to recreate that feeling he had while he was flying. Ironically, the game he and his team were originally going to design wasn't even going to use an F-14 at all, but something more akin to a steampunk or futuristic spaceship theme. However, something actually happened while they were developing the game. Top Gun came out in theaters, and it was huge, as anyone who lived through that era knows. Now, knowing that they wanted the game to appeal to a more worldwide audience, they ended up changing the plane to an F-14 Tomcat, the same one used in the Top Gun film, and released it after a considerable number of late-night hours and sleepless nights to a huge success. This version of the game actually would only appear in Japan. It wouldn't be until Afterburner 2 came out that the game would see a release in the States. This was close to the same game with a few minor modifications and a new throttle system, and just renamed from Afterburner 2 to Afterburner 1 in the States. Whichever version of the game you look at, Afterburner is an intense and riveting experience that hooked players from their very first quarter and kept them playing for hours and hours on end. The immersion gained by the use of the Sega X board and hydraulics, giving players the kind of experience that could hardly be properly replicated outside the true arcade cabinet. But it really wouldn't stop Sega from bringing it home on pretty much every console that they supported over the years, or players from picking it up and having a blast with it all the same. However, what do you guys think of this one? Did any of you ever play a cabinet like this, or this cabinet in particular? If so, I'd be curious to know, and Basically because there's not that many hydraulically powered cabinets like this out in the wild. They just weren't really made that often for the arcades. Do you see this as a more rare experience at all? Let me know in the comments, and while you're there, if you haven't, please leave this video a like. And if you're not already following the channel, please do, that helps me out a ton. Until we meet again though, have a great rest of your day, and happy gaming.